all leadership is being measured by these three questions. Do you care? Can you help me? Can I trust you? And if we're being measured by that as leaders, we should be looking at those who are leading us and ask those three same questions and evaluate the leadership that we're underneath. I don't know that we look enough into our own leadership and help to solidify that we're under the right leadership. And the way we do that is to evaluate. And if we evaluate by these three questions, it really can help us to understand if we're in the correct position in our current state to make sure that we're moving in the direction of a meaningful life, a life by design, and really achievable goals that we have set for ourselves. And so if you find yourself underneath poor leadership, it's good to know that, one, but to evaluate it and see what is the next steps for my life. And so when I look at these three questions that almost every single person is being evaluated who are in leadership, it's, again, do you care? Can I trust you? And can you help me? There's a challenge, though, in actually asking these questions. It's difficult to get somebody to answer these without having some sort of bias towards the answer. And so most of the time, these answers are going to be observed more so than they are going to be just verbatim, right? We don't ask a question and receive the answer in these questions. If I went to somebody and said, do you care? Obviously, they're going to give me all the reasons in why which they care. If I ask somebody, can I trust you? They're going to say yes. If I give somebody the opportunity, they're going to answer in the affirmative. Now, the challenge on all that is that we need to filter it into our own world and where we're standing to make sure that when we're measuring our leadership and evaluating leadership, are we evaluating it from a space that is in alignment to where I want to go or where I want to grow or how I want to grow? And so here's the way I would answer these questions. If I were looking at my leadership and I wanted to find out the answer to, do you care? I would first start following the money. I know that sounds really kind of sad or weird to answer that question or to look at that as a measuring stick for do you care? And yet a lot of people end up voting for the things that they care about the most with their dollar bills. And so if you're looking at your business or the business that you're in or the leadership that you're underneath, start asking the question about where the money's going. If you want to find out, do they care? Follow the money. And the money should be leading into a direction that shows actual care. Now, here's one of the biggest caveats to all of this. So when we answer any of these questions, the leadership that you're underneath should have a very specific mission, vision, and values, okay? They should have a very specific mission, vision, and values. And the reason why I say that is that if we answer these questions without having an alignment towards a mission, vision, values, then we're just throwing enough spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks. And so we're already aligning ourselves with leadership that may not actually be going in any direction that we desire for our own lives, that any of the elements that we want to have a meaningful life, it all may be for naught if we are not sure or there's no a big clarity around the mission, vision, values for those who are we're being led by. So that's the first thing. So let's actually go backwards. Do they have a very clear mission, vision, values? And if they do have a mission, vision, values that's clear, follow the money. Is the money pointing in a direction of care? Second thing is follow the trajectory. So if we wanted to understand if somebody cared, we could follow the trajectory of what's happening. So if we look backwards over what's happened within the leadership that we're underneath, we should be seeing clear, evident signs of care. And that could be a myriad of things, right? So there's no, I guess, very clear, defined checklist for do you care? And yet you will very clearly understand and know if you start looking backwards to answer the question for care, whether or not care was involved. And so if you're looking backwards at the trajectory and care is missing, then the answer to do you care may be pointing to a very specific no, okay? So looking backwards at the trajectory and then follow the leaders that they have built, or in the negative space of that, destroyed, right? So if I want to know if somebody cares, like, do you care? You're leading me, do you care? Follow the money. Does the money show proof of care? Follow the trajectory. Does the trajectory of their life show proof or care? Their leadership show proof of care? And the last thing that I said there was to be able to follow the leaders that they've either built or destroyed. So have they built leaders that care? Can you look in the pathway? If a leader is creating leaders, then it should be very clear that they are caring or that they do care because they've created people who care, okay? The second question in that lineup was, can you help me? And so it's really easy to be able to point to, can you help me? So the evaluation of can you help me? have they done it or helped someone do it better than what they say it can be done? Okay. So have they actually helped? Have they done it, or have they helped someone do it better than what they say it can be done? Because it's easy to talk about best practices and yet to have a lot of theory and no practical behind it. And so if you look at the people who they touch their lives, is there proof that there is a movement towards what they say is possible plus one? And the reason why I say there needs to be a plus one, again, it's easy to teach things. It's easy to teach the theory of it. But if you really consider, like, the old cliche is that the student becomes better than the teacher. The student has surpassed the teacher. That should always really be the case, because in practicality of it, if I taught you the theory of something really simple within the job, the business, the pathway that you have, if there's something that I've taught you very specific, but yet I've given you complete ownership of that thing to be able to grow, you should be growing better than what I've taught it could be, because you're in the practicality of it day in and day out. I more than likely am teaching from a space that I may have experienced it or touched it to a certain extent, but that if I'm really leading somebody and I can help them, they should always be growing into best practices better than even what I could teach them. That's just a true statement. Think about everything that you've ever been taught. My hope is that you've done it plus one, okay? And so when you look at it, they've either done it and they've done it to the extent where you want to be in, or they've taught it, and who they've taught that have executed on those things have executed plus one. So begin to look at it. You can evaluate the 2020, hindsight is always 2020, that little concept. Look backwards into the people that they've helped. Have those people been able to get where they wanted to go plus one? And so can you help is very clear if people are being helped. That's one that's really simple to be able to see, really simple to measure. The other thing that I would say that you should look at is what's the diversity of the people around them, okay? And this is really important. Look at the diversity of the people around them who they have helped. Because if they're only helping people who look almost exactly like them, that act like them, that play like them, that are very much like them, that could be a telltale sign that yes, they can help, but they can only help those who are like them. And if you are unlike them, there may be a chance that they can't help you. And so I don't always want to look at the negative side of things, but yeah, if we evaluate it, we need to evaluate it from a space that's not just biased, that's giving me the answer that I want. It should be getting me the answer that I need. And if I look nothing like them and everybody who they help look exactly like them, there might be some challenges with me aligning in their leadership and making sure that I can grow into my meaningful space. And so look at the diversity around them. Are they helping a myriad of people? So one, do you care? I know that you care because I can follow the money. I can look at the trajectory, and I can really understand from a standpoint of following your leadership. Have people grown up under your leadership that have grown into caring leaders? And then can you help me? Have you either done it or taught it to a plus one status, okay? And then on the other side of care is that I need to look at the diversity of the people who are underneath your helping. Underneath, can you help me? I need to look at the diversity of the people underneath your helping, and is there enough spreading out of those who have been helped that I can fall into the category of one of those personalities? Because if all the people who the leadership can help look exactly like the leadership, you may fall into some challenges, okay? And the last thing in there is, can I trust you? And so one of the things that I look at in the can I trust you space is to go completely back to the mission, vision, values that we were talking about earlier. If I look at the mission, vision, values, I want to isolate on values. If somebody is specifically telling me what their values are and their actions aren't quite lining up with those two things, there's going to be a challenge of trust. That's just true. If you tell me that your values are A, B, and C, and yet you act like X, Y, and Z, there's a huge issue there. And it is either going to be very obvious or subconscious in the way that you act and the way that you carry out your activities. And so being in a space to where your leadership is on that kind of brink of like, I don't know if I can trust you or not, chances are if you answer that with an I don't know if I can, you probably can't. And you're just not brave enough yet to be able to speak that out into existence, because it may mean that you have to change the person who you're under leadership for, which could be either quitting a job, quitting a space, changing your coach, whatever it may be. There's a direct correlation to an action step that has to take place if the trust element is broken. One of the other things that I look at is really interesting how many leaders say this. Well, I shouldn't say this, but, and then they open up the door to say it. Or they're like, well, I know that I can share this. If they were present, they'd be okay with it. It's a weird thing to say, right? If you're underneath leadership that always feels that they can say things that they've been entrusted to, but that they probably shouldn't, that's a trust issue to me, because their words are not matching their actions. And especially if there's a confidence scenario. Those of us who are under leadership, we're going to fall a lot of times into spaces where we've got to help somebody very specifically over the challenges that they're having very privately. And yet if we take that private moment and make it public, and the way we make it public is just sharing it with one other person, that makes it a public scenario. If it was very private and you shared it with anybody, you've just broken my trust. And so anybody who would say, well, you know what, I shouldn't say this, but, because I promise you, they're doing the same thing with the conversations you're having with somebody else. So you've got to be careful of those people who are in leadership who say things like this. And it doesn't necessarily have to be that phrase, I shouldn't say this, but, because they could just say whatever it is about whoever they're supposed to be holding in confidence and breaking that trust. When you see that happen, it's not unique to this one moment. You're not the only person that they're entrusting. They're more than likely sharing it beyond what they should, because most people who do that forget what they should know and what they shouldn't know, and they share from a space of like, well, I'm just helping everybody. That may not be true. So you just got to be careful of that space. And then the last thing is the evidence of what they do is different than what they say, right? The evidence of what they do is not what they say. So in other words, do what I say, not as I do, kind of comes to fruition. That one takes a little bit more time to figure out and to watch. And yet, I promise you, again, you're looking backwards, you will be able to see those things come to light. So trust is one of those things that, like, I think we understand how to measure trust. One of the things that I hope that you pick out from the ideas here, I think one of the most significant ones is in the can you help me thing, is looking for the diversity of the help. Were they able to do more with a broad range of people? Because if they're only helping people who tend to look like and act like them, and I am any kind of shape or way different, I might not be able to find my own meaningful space underneath their leadership. Okay. I hope these things help. I want to give you opportunity to be able to evaluate. Now, and here's the biggest thing. If you're clicking into this link from the blog that I wrote, then you know for a fact that there's this little space of expectations. A great leader will set expectations. So the other piece of that puzzle for this measurement is this evaluation is understanding that if I am measuring my leadership, I should be measuring them from the expectations that they set. And so if I look at a scenario of, do you care? And in the very beginning, the expectations were set from, hey, here's how we handle every challenge that comes in play, and you disagree with the way that those challenges should be handled, and you knew that because of the expectations that were set in the very beginning, well, that's not on the leadership, that's on you, because you agreed to jump into their leadership with that expectation set. And so if I look at, well, do they care? And I say, well, no, because of these things. And it's like, yeah, but the leader set expectation that that's how we're going to handle those things. Then you were in agreement. And so you're not aligned to be able to evaluate from that space if you don't align it from the expectations were set. Now, if a leader didn't set expectations, then the door is wide open. But if a leadership set expectations about how things would be acting and interacting, how things would be executed, you still have to take those things into account. We choose the leadership that we get to be underneath. So we can't change anybody. We can only change ourselves. And if we've chosen to be in that space, we have to first make sure that our portion of evaluation comes from the expectations that were set. And if we're just at the point where we've outgrown those expectations, then it's time to find a new leader. If we look at these 3 questions and there's some challenges in there, it might be also time to find a new leader. We deserve to have a leadership that's helping move us continually in the direction for the goals that we have for our life, so that we can have meaning behind it. So I hope this helps you to be able to put a little bit more of a how-to space for if I am underneath somebody's leadership and I have to measure by these questions. Can you help me? Do you care? Can I trust you? If I'm measuring those 3 things, I need to have a little bit of a measuring stick. So I hope this helps you out a little bit. If you have any questions, guys, always feel free to reach out to me. You can email me, randyolive@kw.com. Have a great day. And again, I hope this helps.